Today on In the Woodyard, you're gonna see a rare sight. I'm on vacation, I'm gonna make a fire, and I'm gonna sit down and talk. Here we go. So my family is on our yearly vacation. We take a week in the middle of summer every year, and we go on vacation. We always rent a cabin, cottage kind of thingy. We try to stay at a bunch of different places, just try them out. This is a new one. We've never been here before, and it's a nice little place. The lake is way down. It's 80 steps down to the water. It's a ways down, so we might not be going down there a lot. We were down there the last couple days because it was in the 80s, but today is a cool, damp day. It's still the morning, and it is probably no more than, I don't know, it's probably mid 60s. So it's a little cool out. It's not supposed to get real warm today. So today's gonna be kind of just a hanging out day. We're gonna go for a walk a little later and go out to eat, that kind of stuff. Kind of do a whole lot of nothing. But this morning, and everybody else is still busy in the house doing stuff, and I thought, I'm coming outside. So I came outside, I started myself a fire. So what I'm gonna do is, I just thought for something different, is that I'd sit down by the fire, and I got a list of questions that I get quite often on the channel from you guys. And I thought I would just talk about them and kind of answer some questions and just do some talking and do a video. So this will be kind of an information one. Not a lot of action except for the fire. Actually feels pretty good because it's kind of chilly out. So here we go. I'm gonna answer some questions right now. Okay, so here's some questions that are going to be answered. These aren't in any particular order. These are just a few things that come up once in a while, and I wrote these down on a couple sheets of paper. I've got lots more that I'm going to cover eventually doing this kind of stuff, hopefully. First question that I know everyone's going to ask, so I'll just answer it. Yes, this is the first time my legs have seen the sun in a while. Second question is pine. It's pine, and yes, it's my wood. I brought it from home. Because you see those, well, I don't know if you guys can see in the camera, there's like about a dozen pieces over there. That's the extent of the wood they left. And I brought, I don't know, 5 or 6 armfuls of wood because I knew we would use it up. Because when we have a fire, usually we start it in the afternoon and let it go till the last person leaves. And I like pine a lot for campfire wood. It just smells good, burns great. It has that snap, crackle, and pop, and has nice flames to it. A lot of people think, you know, I've mentioned this before, they think that the only wood there is that they can burn is, you know, a hardwood like an oak or something like that. And it's great wood for heating. But I like flames, and a lot of the really dense hardwoods like oak, hickory, locust, they don't put a lot of flames off. I like flames. So I like pine a lot for campfire wood, and I like cherry a lot for campfire wood. But my cherry is more valuable, so I try not to burn that myself very much. So when we burn our own campfires, we like pine. My family likes it too, and we like the excitement of when a spark flies and falls on someone and they got to run from the fire, and of course we all scream and laugh. And so pine, that's what it is. And this happens to be red pine and white pine mix. Okay, so a question I get quite a bit, and I had it just the other day again. Can I identify wood just by looking at it if there's no bark on it, like a piece like this? And the answer is most of the time. I can generally look at it and get a pretty good idea. If it's my wood, I usually know because I know where I put it and what kind of wood is different piles. But a lot of times I can look at other people's firewood too that's stacked, and I can look and see by looking at the grain, by looking at the bark is a real big key. Like this one right here is an easy one. This one you can see right here. That's a piece of red pine. Real easy to tell just because of the bark. So if you got even just a little piece of bark on there anywhere, you generally can tell what it is. And if you can't tell by looking at it like this, you know, if there's no indicator as far as bark or the grain structure, or if it's turned gray or something like that and it's kind of hard to tell, it's been real weathered like this piece over here, I still can generally tell most of the time. A lot of times you can get clues from obviously looking at it. I can get clues by the weight of it. If it's a light wood, you can tell a lot of times it's going to be a soft wood. If it's heavy and dense, it's going to be a hickory or oak or locust, something like that. And so yeah, those are some of the keys. Now, if you can't tell by that, if there's no bark to look at, or if you can't tell by the looking at it just from the outside, sometimes you can smell it and it'll have a distinct odor. There's certain woods that smell a certain way, and if you can't smell it, if it's too old to smell, what I'll do sometimes is I'll split it in half, and you can see the inside on a fresh split, and you can see the actual color of the inside of the wood, and that will give it away a lot of times. Like oaks have those radiations that go across, what's the way? So instead of going down the grain, they go across the other way. So perpendicular? No, that'd be next to each other. Cross grain, there you go. They have the radiated lines that go out, so oaks will give it away. And then a lot of times there's little checking in it. You can see if it's a white oak or a red oak. So you can tell the difference that way. The color of the wood a lot of times will give it away. Oak is, obviously usually more orangish. Locust is very green on the inside. White oak is a lighter color and it has that checking that you can see. So you can usually tell by that. There's indicators, and then smelling it is another thing. You can smell the wood. So most of the time I can figure it out. It's rare that you can't figure it out. It just depends on how long you want to spend with it. My favorite wood, I get asked, what's my favorite wood? I love cherry. And the reason I like cherry, number one, is it cuts really easy. As far as me working with it, it cuts really easy. It splits really easy. It's not a heavy wood. It dries very fast. It burns fantastic. I love the smell of it. It's on the bark on the outside has somewhat of a oil in it, similar to what like birch does, and it just burns really easy. It has kind of a greenish blue flame to it, especially at night if you're burning it. So that's kind of cool. I like the cherry a lot, and it sells really good. And now that I've got customers that I've recommended cherry, when they'll ask me, what do you recommend? And I'll say, hey, I'd recommend, if you never tried it before, try some cherry, you'll like it. And I've got 5 or 6 customers now, that's all they'll want is cherry. And I just ran out of my dry stuff just recently, so now I got another truckload I just finished that you guys saw me cutting on. And so that's one of the things that I really like is cherry. And I like pine for campfire woods, just because it does have a little bit of action to it. It doesn't just sit there and burn slowly. I like the popping and the snapping and the smell of it. It burns great, has great flame. It's cheaper. There's more of it. You can get it anywhere. It starts super easy. So yeah, that's why I like that. As far as heating, I like locust a lot. Locust and I call it Grinch wood because it's green inside, and it doesn't matter what kind of locust, it's all good. It just burns fantastic. And the bark generally comes off. It dries pretty nice. It dries better than oak, I think, a little faster than oak. It's just a real good dense wood. My dad had never burned any before, and I gave him a face cord of it, or a third of a cord if you prefer, last year. Because he was out of wood towards the end of winter, and it was smaller pieces. It was easy for him to load into his wood stove, and he just loved it. He said, man, that was good stuff. I said, yeah, I told you. Everybody thinks oak is fantastic, and oak's nice, but oak takes a long time to dry. It's very heavy wood. It's stinky wood. It smells like puke, especially red oak when you open it up. So oak is one of those woods that everybody loves, and it's great for heating. It puts a lot of BTUs out, and they love it. Hickory's really nice. Hickory dries slow like oak does, real dense wood, and it's great too. The nice thing about oak is that you can leave it outside for almost forever as long as the water stays off of it, and it won't rot on you, and bugs will stay out of it and won't eat it all up. Whereas if you get a lot of the other hardwoods, even hickory, ash, maple, box elder, cottonwood, beech, stuff like that, bugs will just keep eating on it. It just turns to powder eventually. So another question along with this, as far as keeping wood outside and bugs, is I get asked all the time, do I ever have problems with ants, and do I ever have problems with termites? Yes, on the ants, only when I'm splitting it. Because a lot of the wood I'm splitting is from logs or from trees that I cut down, and there's a lot of hollow spots, and there's a lot of ants in it, the big carpenter ants, the big nasty ones. They just spill out by the hundreds a lot of times. But they're only in there because it's a safe place to live, because they've got a cavity that nothing else can get into for the most part, and there's moisture in there. So a lot of people ask me about this, is, do I have problems when I deliver the wood? Well, most of it I'm delivering in the wintertime, so the ants aren't a problem. But once your wood is cut and split and stacked, the bugs will leave, because the moisture leaves the wood, it dries out, you're opening it up, they're smaller pieces, it's not as cozy for them, so they leave, so it's not a problem. And the answer on termites is that no, we don't have them here. This is Wisconsin. Right now I'm in northern Wisconsin, by the way, and we don't have termites here. That's a southern thing that you guys have to worry about. We don't have to worry about it. You guys get the termites and the hurricanes and the extreme heat and humidity. We get cold. We have 6 months of winter. Most stuff can't live here. Same thing with snakes. I get asked just this morning on some comments, do you ever have problems with snakes, or do you see a lot of snakes? We don't have a lot of snakes. Again, 6 months of winter. Think about it. And we have very, very few poisonous snakes. We have timber rattler, and they are way in the southern part of the state, in the mounds area down by where there's the driftless area, it's called. We have very few poisonous snakes, just that one kind. We do have water snakes, which are not poisonous. We have garter snakes, not poisonous. We have fire bellies, not poisonous. We have grass snakes, not poisonous. We have fox snakes, not poisonous. Pine snakes, not poisonous. We have, what are they called? Hognose snakes, not poisonous. They puff and swell up and they shake their tail like they think they're poisonous, but then they play dead. What else do we have for snakes? I think that might be about it that I know of anyway. But not really any poisonous ones. And I see very few in the wood yard. Generally, I garter snake maybe once a year. We just don't have many, so it's not an issue for us. I know you guys down south have to worry about copperheads and water moccasins and cottonmouths, all those things that you guys have. We don't have to worry about them hardly at all. Next question. Again, these have no relationship to any of the other questions. Why Husqvarna chainsaws? I get asked that a lot. Why do I like Husqvarna chainsaws? Well, when I was a kid, my dad started out with, actually, from what I remember, he had some really old stuff. I don't remember even what it was, but I know he started when we burned wood as a kid, when I was like 7, 8 years old, when I really started helping him a lot. He had a McCulloch 1010. That was his chainsaw. I don't even remember what it was. You guys probably would know. Leave it in the comments. How many cc is it? Is it like a 55 or a 60 cc? I don't know, whatever it was. That's all he had, and that's what he used. And when we were doing wood, I was not a chainsaw lover. I thought they were loud and noisy and scary, and my dad would never have let us anyway run the chainsaw when we were, 8, 9 years old. Me and Kenny and my brother Eric, when we were cutting wood with them, we weren't allowed to touch the chainsaw. Our job was split the wood, carry the wood, stack the wood, unload the wood. That's it. That's why we were there. That was our job. And my dad paid, just like I pay, all the water you can drink. That was pretty much it. So we had that McCulloch, and then when that died, then he got a John Shred, and he had a couple different John Shreds, if I remember it. I do not remember the models or whatever he had. And then after that, we had a Husqvarna dealership move into town, from what I remember. And I think the reason he got the first Husqvarna years ago was because my brother Kenny was by that time buying chainsaws and working professionally for loggers cutting wood. And they had, when he first started, I think it was probably like early 80s when Kenny started working professionally doing chainsaw work, cutting trees. They were actually using steel chainsaws. He used them for a year or two, and he said they had nothing but problems. They were breaking all the time, unreliable, just terrible. And then the guys he worked for switched over to Husqvarna's, and he said that's just what he stuck with ever since, because they've been good. Of course, since then, no, I don't want any haters here, still makes great products. And Husqvarna makes great products. Very nice saws. They're all really good. It doesn't matter. So does Echo. Echo makes really good saws. Dalmor makes good saws. I know there's others. I don't know the names, but there's a bunch of good stuff out there. There really is. And Husqvarna and Stihl are just the major players. They're the Coke and the Pepsi. They're the Ford and the Chevy, you know, if you look at it that way. They're the major players. And everybody's making great stuff. What's really nice about chainsaws today versus years ago is that, and all products, that's trucks, cars, everything. There's so much competition now that everybody has to step up their game and improve their products and do a much better job now with the quality and the reliability and the toughness of what they're making. So all great saws. So my dad started with the Husqvarnas. Kenny had the Husqvarnas. So then my first chainsaw I had, if I remember right, was it a Craftsman? It's a piece of junk that I had when I first got married. Oh, and then I got the first one I actually bought, I bought a small Poulan wild thing, if I remember right. And I used it just for cutting campfire wood and stuff like that. We had a fireplace in our first place we lived in. We burned firewood. That was about it. Then after that, then I got the Husqvarna 455 Rancher, like when they came out. I don't know when it was, a long time ago. I did have a 55 Rancher before that. And then I moved up to after the 55, then my one brother bought a 576. And I ran it, was like, oh my gosh. Talk about power and how fast you could cut. And my brother Kenny, who had been cutting professional, had been using, you know, the 372s and 270s, whatever. And he always said, get a real saw, quit using those little weenie saws. He says, you guys are wasting time. You know, Kenny is. I'm sure you guys that watch the channel know. Well, he was right. And so that leads me to another question that a lot of people ask. If you're gonna buy one saw, what would you get? I would get about a 70cc saw if you're only gonna get one saw, because it's going to do everything you need it to do. It's going to be able to cut big trees. You can cut small stuff with it. And I would get a 24-inch bar. That's just what I would get. 20-inch bar is adequate. But you can cut, even if you're only cutting a few face cords of wood a year for yourself, yeah, then you probably don't need that big of a saw. You know, a 50 to 55, maybe a 60cc saw would be all you would need. But boy, once you run a 70 to 75 or 80cc saw, it's just so much more power. It cuts so much faster. They're just fantastic. Okay, so I think we covered enough on the chainsaws for now. Like I said though, 24-inch bars and chains. Oh, and the chains, I get asked that all the time. What chain do you use on your saw? Well, Husqvarna a few years ago changed their numbering system, and the one I use all the time now is the H47. You can look it up. The H47, I think it's a designation Husqvarna, and the 47 is their model number because that's a 24-inch, 3/8 inch, .050 on the, my mind's blank. Okay, another question, not related again at all. What's the most wood I ever cut in one day? I had 2 days where I cut a lot of wood. One time I went to my buddy's land, and he had a whole bunch of oaks that were dead in a cluster, like in probably a half-acre cluster, maybe a 1-acre cluster. And I got there real early in the morning, like 7 in the morning, and it was in the winter, and the days were shorter then. Maybe it got dark out probably around, I don't know, 5, 6 o'clock, but I got there like right when it was getting light out. And I cut all day. I cut, and they were oak trees that were pretty close together, so there was hardly any branches. They were nice, straight. There's one over there, it's pretty nice and straight. So very few branches, nice size stuff, you know, like no more than 12 inches to maybe 18 inches, all of it. And they were dead standing trees. I cut them down, I bucked them up, cut it down, bucked up, cut it down, bucked up. If I recount right, if I can remember correctly, it was in the teens. It was like 17, 18, 19 trees that I cut down, bucked them all up. And then at the end of the day, it was starting to get a little dark, and I quit cutting, and then I loaded up, because I was able to drive the truck in pretty close with the trailer. I loaded up my trailer, and I did that right into dark, and then I drove home, because his land is it's like 80 some miles away from where I live. That was almost what I cut as far as trees in a day. That was a full day of cutting, and I remember that day I went through, it was either 10 or 11 tanks of gas. Might even have been 12. It was a lot of gas. It was a lot of cutting. But it was a fun day, and there was only a little bit of snow that day, you know, early winter. It was great cutting. But the most I've ever cut in one day, I did cut one day I cut an entire truckload by myself. But that was, oh geez, watch out. But that was a few years ago, like 10 years ago maybe. I don't know, maybe it wasn't even 10, maybe 8 years ago. It's one of the first truckloads I bought, and it was smaller stuff. I was younger, obviously. I was in good shape, and I was excited, and I started early, and I just cut. I cut the whole thing in one day, but did I pay the price? Oh, I was sore the next day and tired. I was worthless the next day, but that's a lot of cutting. There was about 12, maybe 13 full cords in that load. I cut the whole thing. That was a lot. That's more than I really want to do. To me, the perfect amount to cut, when I'm really in the mood to cut and I feel good and things are going great and I got good wood to cut, half a truckload is nice. If you can cut 6, 7 full cords in a day, block them up, throw them out of the way, that's a good day. Okay, next question. Do I sell to restaurants or things like that? Yes. I have a couple restaurants I sell to where they do some smoking. They have smokers and I sell to them. I've never gone after that market. I know there's a huge market out there, and I know Joe in Ohio, he sells tons of wood to restaurants. I haven't gone after it, but I want to do more of it. I do have 2 guys that they have a food service, and they have smokers that are portable that they go and they do events. They do the vending type events, and they sell brisket and ribs and stuff like that. I got a couple guys that I sell to for that, and they're just getting going over the last couple years. One of them in particular has this year already bought 2 face cords from me, just probably in the last month, and because they had a lot of events they had to do. And I think he bought a face cord in the spring, so I think, yeah, it's been like a full cord. So that'll hopefully will grow, and I want to hit that more too. The other thing is campgrounds. Do I sell to campgrounds? Yes, I do, and I would like to sell a lot more to campgrounds. I had a guy that I have had as a regular customer now for, oh boy, it's got to be 5-6 years, and I deliver a full cord to his house twice a year, early in the fall and then, you know, early winter. And he always asked me, would you ever consider, you know, delivering wood to my campground? It's, you know, it's over an hour away. I said, sure. I said, but I do charge for mileage. He says, okay, I'll let you know when I'm ready. So a couple of years ago he called me, and I delivered a full cord of wood to him. You guys have probably seen me deliver to the campground, and now all of his neighbors in his whole little cluster there I've sold wood to. I think there's 6 of them now in that little cluster I've delivered wood to, and they're all either a full cord, or they'll split a full cord between neighbors. They'll do, you know, face cord and a half, or half a cord and a half a cord. I've done that. Couple times I've delivered just a single face cord, and I try to discourage that because it's quite a trip. It's like a $60 delivery charge, 60 or 70 I think I charge, and to get their money's worth, it's smarter to do a full load where I can load up the truck, or if they can talk a neighbor into buying some and I can deliver it. So that works pretty good. But a lot of times when I do those loads, what's really nice about that, when I go to those campgrounds, it's probably 3/4 of the way to my dad's house. So I tie that in with a trip to go see my dad, and then cut some wood afterwards. You know, later in the day I'll go and then I'll cut wood and bring it home. Or I'll go to my buddy's land, which is close to that area, and I'll cut some. Or I go to Tony's place and we do some videos and do some work at his place, because they're all kind of in the same area, on the way I should say. So I try to tie in several things with it, which was really nice. The next question I get, what's the farthest delivery I've ever made? I have a guy that I deliver to at his he has 3 homes. Yes, 3. His wife's family owns a construction business that's national, and he's one of the executives in the company, and she works there too. Money is no object. Their house is huge, on a golf course, huge house. Very nice people. They've got the full-size swimming pool, basketball court, backyard fire pit, and they want the wood, they want it delivered, they want it stacked, they want it covered, and I clean up afterwards. They pay me for everything. So I deliver to his house. I do 2 face cords there, usually twice a year, because I do a lot of entertaining. And then I also deliver to his cottage, which is, oh man, that one cottage has got to be 60 miles away, and they pay me for mileage for that. And then I also deliver to their, well, they call it their camper, but it's not a camper. It's like a side-by-side, but it's in an area where there's a lot of full-size trailers and mobile homes that people call their trailers, but it's on a really nice lake. I deliver there also like once a year. So, and that's the farthest one. That's 80 miles away. That's the farthest I've delivered. So there you go. And yes, I do charge for delivery. I charge by the mile. If I got to go like more than 40 miles, the price increases substantially. I charge even more if I got to go a long distance. It's just a long time to go, and I got to travel back too. I have built my business on doing free delivery. That's one of the things that has been really big. So I think we're getting kind of long on time here. Let's see what else I can answer for questions. Those are the ones oh, one I missed. I missed one question. This is the last question I'm going to answer. This is it. Why did I buy a Coyote tractor? I bought a Coyote tractor for a lot of reasons. As you know, if you've been watching my channel, you probably saw the tractor buying episodes that I went through, because I researched it a lot, talked to a lot of people, read a lot of reviews, studied as much as I could on it. And there were several tractors that in the beginning I thought I would get. At the top of my list, very top, was not a Coyote. Matter of fact, that wasn't even hardly on the list. Kubota was at the top. That was what I thought I was going to get, because I like Japanese products. I think they do a great job. I just do. I know there's a lot of you, buy American, but they have really good products. So that was at the top of my list. And then second, I actually was considering John Deere, because my one brother had a John Deere. They're everywhere at dealerships all around me. So I considered John Deere to be one of the leaders. But after going there and getting what I call customer no service, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. Snooty, didn't want to help me. I was just turned off. So, and there was other reasons for the John Deere after reading reviews and talking with people. I know they're all American, I know they've been around forever, but the fact that you have to go to a John Deere dealership, and only a John Deere dealership, to get any kind of service done now, because they have all the computer codes for any of the electronics and computer stuff and engine work. And I guess a lot of farmers are very upset about that. I know there's a lot of controversy about it. I don't get involved in all that stuff, but I just got turned off, so went away from that. The next leader on those, the top ones, was a Branson. I have a Branson dealer that's less than 2 miles away from my place. And I really liked what I heard about their product, and after looking at them, I really liked their tractors a lot. I mean, I was real close to pulling a trigger on a Branson. I know a guy who bought one, absolutely loves it, I had no problems. But then after I started researching a lot and really reading reviews and looking at what I wanted to get for the size and model and what I wanted the capabilities to do, Branson was still really good. But I heard so much good stuff about the Coyotes, just so much. And after looking at them, I just really liked them. I looked at Yanmar. I did not look at Mahindra, because the closest dealer was quite a ways away. Although I've heard very good things about Mahindra. I looked at New Holland. I looked at, is it YTM? YTM, is that it? They also make a Rural King. And there are a lot of people ask me, why don't you get a Rural King? They're great. Well, where I live, the closest Rural King dealership is 230 miles away, so that was kind of out of the question. And I also bought my Coyote because the place I bought it from has 5 locations. They've been in business for over 100 years. I think it's over, maybe it's 90 years. It's a lot. The sales people, I talked to 2 different ones. They were fantastic. They were very helpful. They answered all my questions, and if they didn't know, they found out. They spent time with me. They were willing to go around and look at stuff. They were willing to suggest that I go look at even one of their other dealerships for other models that they didn't have in stock and take a look at them, because they could get those. So I really like that. And they had a real good service bay and service area too. So, and I heard good things about them. So that's why I bought a Coyote. Oh, one of the most important things, the capability of it. For the size tractor I got and for what I paid for it, it has equal with only one other brand as far as its lift capacity, and that was Branson. The size tractor, for the horsepower and the frame size and the weight of the tractor and for what I paid for it, Branson and Coyote were the leaders. When I looked at what I really wanted the tractor to do, I was not as concerned about the power takeoff, the rear area so much. I know I'll use it some, but I was mainly worried about what could it lift. because as you know now, I got a grapple and I want to be able to lift logs to eventually someday, well, first of all, I want to be able to lift big ones that I can cut them without having to lean over, move them around, move stuff around the wood yard easier, move pallets, be able to load a processor someday. That's in the works, so that's another reason. But the biggest reason I would say, well, reliability was huge. I heard really good things about them. The other real big thing is that for the cost of my tractor, for what I paid for it, for the base price, an equal tractor in John Deere or in Kubota was $7,000 to $8,000 more. It was that much more. And the other thing with the John Deere's attachments, you know, as you guys know, the John Deere attachments are John Deere attachments. So that's the other reason why I went with the Kubota. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So that's it for today, folks. Thanks for being here. You know what to do. Poke the buttons. Come back again tomorrow. I'll have another video, because I'm going to do videos every day as long as I can. And between now and tomorrow, get outside, get cutting. Good night, everyone.